The message arrived on a quiet morning when most people on Earth were busy with their everyday routines. Children were getting ready for school, workers were rushing to get to their jobs, and families were preparing breakfast. No one expected anything unusual to happen. But far above the planet, beyond satellites and space stations, something appeared that changed everything. The signal came first. It wasn't a normal transmission. It didn't match any known pattern used by Earth's technology. No radio tower, no satellite, no device on Earth had made it. It came from deep space, from a direction scientists had never detected before. For a few seconds, the signal confused every monitoring station on the planet. Then it hit all at once every screen, every communication device, every channel that could receive data. The message did not appear as words at first. It came as a vibration, a strange wave that made static roll across screens. People thought it was a glitch. Many tried tapping their phones or adjusting their TVs, but then the wave slowly formed into symbols that did not belong to any human language. Space agencies acted fast. They used their best systems to decode what they were seeing. The world watched as experts attempted to make sense of the message. When it finally translated, the room fell silent. It was a declaration. It was from something called the Galactic Assembly, a group unknown to every human on the planet. The message said that the assembly represented hundreds of civilizations across the stars. They claimed they had been observing Earth for a long time. They said Earth had finally reached a level where it must join the galactic system. At first, people felt excited. The idea of joining a community of advanced beings sparked hope. Maybe Earth would finally find answers about life beyond the planet. Maybe they would learn technology far more advanced than their own. Maybe humanity would no longer feel alone. But the excitement ended quickly. The message continued, and the tone changed. It explained that every civilization under the assemblies rule followed a strict requirement. Each planet must pay a tribute. The tribute was described as a sign of loyalty, respect, and cooperation. They framed it as a normal rule, something all planets accepted when joining the assembly. But the final lines were sharper. The tribute was not optional. If Earth refused, the assembly would take action. They did not explain what kind of action. They didn't need to. The silence after those lines made it clear it was a threat, wrapped in diplomatic language. Within minutes, panic spread. Social media flooded with speculation. People wondered what the tribute even meant. Did they want resources? Technology? Control? No one knew. Governments rushed to call emergency meetings. Scientists tried to find more information about the assembly, but there was none anywhere. It was as if the group existed far outside anything humanity had ever detected. Leaders across Earth gathered in secure rooms. They watched the translated message again and again, studying every part of it. Some believed Earth should comply to avoid danger. Others believed giving in would make humanity weak and dependent. And some were simply stunned that such a powerful group even existed. For the first time in a very long while, Earth felt small. Yet something unusual happened. Despite the fear, people across different nations began to talk to one another. This event didn't target one country. It targeted the entire human race. Everyone shared the same shock, the same uncertainty. Suddenly, borders and politics seemed less important. The question ahead was bigger than any individual disagreement. In research centers around the world, teams began analyzing the message's structure. They found it incredibly advanced. The assembly used communication methods based on physics humanity had only begun to understand. But the message also had something else: certainty. The assembly spoke with the confidence of a system that had been obeyed for a long time. But Earth was not like other worlds. Humanity had survived things the assembly likely never studied: natural disasters, global conflicts, famine, disease. And centuries of struggle had shaped humans into something unpredictable. They were not weak. They were not used to bowing to threats. And they had something no other species in the galaxy seemed to expect: stubbornness. As the hours passed, global news continued replaying the message. Some people felt fear. Others felt anger. Many felt confused. What did the assembly want? What kind of tribute were they demanding? But nothing was explained further. The message said what it wanted to say, and then ended. By afternoon, more details appeared. Observatories detected strange objects positioned far beyond the moon. They were not stars, not meteors, not anything naturally occurring. They were artificial. Structures, huge ones. It became clear that the assembly had not only sent a message, they had arrived. This discovery pushed the world into a deeper level of urgency. Leaders met again. Advisors shared what little they understood. Some suggested sending a peaceful message back. Others said Earth should refuse the tribute. A few believed humanity should prepare for danger. In a quiet corner of one meeting room, one advisor said something simple, something that caught everyone's attention. They explained that Earth had always been viewed as unpredictable by nature. Humans invented new solutions in crisis. They adapted. They resisted. If the assembly expected fear, maybe humanity should not give them what they expected. Those words spread across the room. People realized something important. Earth had the right to respond, and humanity's response would be heard across countless worlds, not just their own. As night approached, the debate intensified. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. They said Earth was new to the galactic stage and should avoid conflict. Others argued that giving in would set a dangerous pattern. If Earth agreed to one demand, more would follow. And some believed the assembly simply wanted to test Earth, to see if humans would submit without question. Outside government rooms, the general public waited. People stayed awake in their homes, watching updates. Even though the message had arrived only hours ago, it felt like the entire world had changed. Every person, no matter their background, wondered the same thing. What will Earth say? Hours passed. Discussions turned into long arguments. Advisors spoke about humanity's history, about how humans had always valued freedom. They reminded leaders that Earth had fought for independence many times, in many ways. They noted that bending to pressure from an unknown force could shake the spirit of future generations. Finally, late into the night, everyone agreed on one point. Whatever message Earth sent must reflect the character of humanity. It must not show fear. It must not show confusion. And it must not promise obedience, simply because someone stronger demanded it. The question now was what to say. People suggested long responses, explaining Earth's position. Others argued for a diplomatic tone. Some recommended silence. But none of these felt right. None of them captured the human spirit fully. Then something unexpected happened. Someone not a leader, not a scientist, not a strategist spoke up with a simple thought. They suggested that Earth shouldn't send a long explanation. They said humanity didn't need to justify itself. They said one word could say more than 1,000 sentences. At first, people laughed softly, thinking it was a joke. But the idea grew. It entered every mind in the room. Slowly, faces changed. The laughter faded. They realized the idea was not silly. It was powerful. It was bold. And it fit exactly with everything humanity believed in. The room became still as they considered it. A one-word answer would be loud, clear, and unforgettable. It would show strength without aggression. It would show unity without desperation. It would be the kind of message the assembly would never expect. As dawn approached and the first light touched the sky, Earth's leaders prepared the transmission. Engineers readied the global broadcast system. Every corner of the planet would hear the response, and every world beyond Earth would hear it too. People woke up early, waiting for the moment. When everything was ready, the world went silent. Earth was about to speak back to the galaxy for the first time in history. And it would do it with just one single word. When Earth finally agreed on sending a one-word message to the Galactic Assembly, the world took a breath, but the tension didn't fade. If anything, the silence that followed made everything feel heavier. People kept refreshing news pages, watching the skies, and waiting for updates. But while the public waited, something else was happening behind the scenes, something the Assembly had never expected. Scientists, historians, and analysts around the world began digging deeper into every record of strange signals, odd sightings, and unexplained encounters from Earth's past. They tried to understand exactly what the Assembly knew about humans, and what they thought they knew. Their reason was simple. Earth needed to understand how the Assembly viewed humanity before sending a response that could shake the entire galaxy. In the early hours of the morning, a group of researchers discovered something unusual. Hidden within the data sent by the Assembly were traces of earlier observation logs. These logs suggested that Earth had been monitored long before the message arrived. Not just in the last few years, but possibly for centuries. This discovery spread quickly among the teams working on the situation. If the Assembly had been watching humanity for that long, then surely they believed they understood humans. But the more the scientists studied the logs, the more they realized the opposite. The logs were incomplete, confused, even contradictory at times. It became clear that the Assembly had underestimated humanity from the very beginning. Humans had confused them. Humans had survived things that didn't make sense to the Assembly's logic, and humans had advanced much faster than they expected. The researchers wondered if that was why the Assembly demanded tribute so early. Maybe they feared Earth's rapid growth. Maybe they thought forcing Earth into their system sooner would control the planet's unpredictable development. But these were guesses. No one truly understood the Assembly's mindset. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders gathered once again. This time, the room felt different, less shocked, less panicked. Now people were trying to understand why the Assembly acted the way it did. One advisor shared something interesting. They explained that most advanced civilizations likely grew in stable environments with long periods of peace, calm weather, and slow, predictable progress. But humanity had grown under pressure. Earth had earthquakes, storms, floods, droughts, heat waves, and freezing temperatures. People had survived all of it. Humans learned to adapt fast. They learned to rebuild. They learned to fight for survival. More the leaders listened, the more they realized that Earth was not weak, and it never had been. Humanity was shaped by struggle, and struggle built resilience. The Assembly might have assumed Earth was just another new world to push around. But they didn't understand what humans were capable of. This new understanding changed this mood entirely. For the first time since the message arrived, people started feeling confident, not arrogant, not reckless, just confident, while the leaders talked. Something else was happening beyond Earth. The strange objects that had appeared behind the moon earlier, those massive structures, began changing position. Observatories reported that they were aligning themselves in a formation that hinted at communication relays rather than weapons. This suggested that the Assembly expected Earth to reply quickly. The fact that they prepared a communication network so fast showed something important. They thought humans would accept their demand without resistance. But Earth was not planning to accept. In fact, Earth was planning something far simpler and far more powerful. To say no. Across the planet, people discussed the upcoming response. Some felt nervous. Others felt proud. Despite differences among countries, backgrounds, and beliefs, the one-world message had created a strange kind of unity. Everyone understood that humanity's answer wouldn't just represent governments. It would represent the spirit of the entire human race. During this time, historians revealed new information they'd found. They noticed that several earlier civilizations on Earth had legends of visitors from the sky, stories of beings who came, observed, and left without explanation. These stories existed in different cultures across thousands of years. The historians wondered if these legends were connected to the Assembly's early observations. Maybe the Assembly had visited primitive humans long ago. Maybe they believed humans back then were too weak to ever stand up to them. But things had changed. Humans had built cities, machines, aircraft, rockets, and communication systems. Humans had reached their own moon. Humans had their own satellites. Humanity was no longer a quiet, isolated planet. And sometimes, things that grow under pressure grow stronger than expected. One expert said something that made everyone pause. He explained that the Assembly probably didn't understand the most important thing about humans. They don't break easily. When humans lose something, they rebuild it. When they are pushed, they push back. When someone tries to scare them, it often has the opposite effect. This comment spread through leadership circles. Slowly, the idea formed that the Assembly had miscalculated. They had approached Earth as if Earth were just another world in their long list of controlled civilizations. But humans were unpredictable. Humans didn't like being ordered around. Humans didn't like being threatened. And humans didn't like paying tribute to strangers. As the morning moved toward noon, Earth's leaders began planning how to send the one-word message. It had to be sent in a way that reached not only the Assembly, but every world connected to them. The message had to echo through their entire network. This was not just Earth speaking to the Assembly. It was Earth speaking to the galaxy. Engineers prepared global transmitters. Every major space agency cooperated. For the first time in history, nations that normally competed now worked hand in hand. They connected data centers, strengthened satellite links, and unified broadcasting lines. Meanwhile, news channels continued covering the story. Reporters interviewed experts who tried to explain what the Assembly might do next. Some believed the Assembly would attempt negotiations. Others believed they would increase pressure. A few warned that the Assembly might not accept refusal. But in all those interviews, something was clear. Humanity was not bending. As afternoon approached, leaders took a short break from discussion. Many walked outside for a moment. They saw people gathered on streets, watching screens in shop windows. Families sat together at home. Workers paused their tasks. Students whispered about the message. Even elders who rarely cared for global politics paid attention. For once, the entire world shared the same focus. Back inside, the discussion reached a deeper level. Leaders asked themselves, why did Earth react differently from other civilizations? What made humans so unwilling to obey? The more they talked, the more they understood it. Humans had a long history of resisting unfair demands. People had fought for their rights, for their land, for their beliefs, and for their independence many times in the past. Humans had learned to value their freedom through experience. The tribute demand touched something deep inside the human spirit, not just political pride, but something older and stronger. Humans had learned not to surrender what mattered. And freedom always mattered. One advisor described humanity like this: if you back humans into a corner, they don't curl up, they stand up. That line struck everyone in the room. It described the entire situation perfectly. While Earth was preparing its response, the Assembly waited in silence. Their earlier communication had ended, but their presence in space remained strong. Observatories tracked their structures as they continued adjusting position. It seemed they hoped Earth would respond quickly, and that the response would be quiet and obedient. But Earth was planning something very different. Before finalizing the message, leaders held one last meeting. They reviewed everything they knew. Humanity's history, the Assembly's underestimation, the strength built through struggle, the resilience that defined the human race, and the willingness of people to stand up for what they believed in. All of it pointed in one direction. Earth could not say yes. Earth could not offer tribute. Earth could not show fear. The decision was clear. Earth's response had to be strong. But it didn't need to be long. It didn't need to be complex. It only needed to speak for all of humanity. And the one word they had chosen did exactly that. As evening arrived, the transmission device was prepared. Engineers ran tests. Advisors checked translations. Leaders gathered for the final moment. The world outside watched breathlessly, waiting for the signal to be sent. The sun slowly dipped below the horizon. Lights across the planet flickered on. People gathered in homes, parks, workplaces, and streets. They all knew that Earth was about to speak, not just to the Assembly, but to the entire galaxy. When the moment came, the room fell silent. A single button waited to be pressed. The one-word message was ready, and with that word, humanity was about to change everything. The moment had finally arrived. After hours of debate, planning, and preparation, Earth's leaders gathered around the central console where the single-word message waited. The air in the room felt heavy, almost as if everyone was holding their breath. Outside, the world was awake, watching, waiting, hoping that whatever Earth was about to send would protect them rather than provoke danger. Inside the broadcast chamber, the lights dimmed slightly as technicians activated the global transmission link. A screen at the front of the room showed the planet from orbit, a reminder of who they were speaking for. Billions of people. Billions of hopes and fears. Billions of lives depending on what would happen next. A soft hum filled the room as the transmitter warmed up. The floor vibrated just enough to remind everyone of the power they were about to unleash, not a weapon, not a threat, but a message that would travel farther than any human voice ever had. A simple word. Just one. One that would shake a system far older and far larger than Earth. Even though the leaders had already agreed on the word, they paused one last time. Not because they doubted the decision, but because they understood the weight of what they were doing. Once the message left Earth, there would be no taking it back. The galaxy would judge humanity based on that single word. Finally, one of the leaders nodded to the chief technician. Send it. The technician pressed the button. For a second, nothing seemed to happen. Then the screens lit up. A sharp pulse of energy shot from Earth's transmitters. It moved across the atmosphere, through satellites, past the moon, and toward the strange structures built by the Galactic Assembly. The pulse carried the message encoded in dozens of formats to ensure every alien system could read it. The message simply said, no. No explanation, no apology, no fear, just a firm, clear refusal. The pulse continued beyond the structures near the moon. It traveled into the network that the Assembly had set up. That network spread the message across countless star systems, bouncing it through relay stations that had existed long before humans learned how to make fire. Back on Earth, the leaders stood quietly. They had done it. The word was out. Now they had to wait. But the galaxy did not wait long to respond. Far away, in the center of Assembly space, where enormous structures floated in the darkness like shining rings, the message arrived. For a split second, the grand chamber of the Assembly remained quiet, processing the data. Then confusion rippled through the hall. They were expecting fear. They were expecting negotiation. They were expecting excuses, but they received none of that. Instead, they received a refusal so simple and so bold that it confused their translators. Some delegates thought there had been an error. Others believed the message had been cut off. A few thought Earth didn't understand the tribute order. and had sent the wrong word, but then they checked again. There was no mistake. Earth had said no. Nothing else. In the assembly chamber, lights blinked rapidly as systems tried to decode the context. Machines scanned databases for explanations. But there was no file, no record, no rule that explained why a young civilization like Earth would respond in such a fearless way. Confusion turned into tension. The leaders of represented worlds began whispering to one another. Some demanded immediate action. Others insisted on taking time to understand Earth's intentions. The chamber buzzed with noise, each species arguing in their own way. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the response from the galaxy had not yet reached, but humanity could feel something shifting in the air. People who had been nervous earlier now felt strangely calm. They knew the answer reflected who they were. They knew it was honest. They knew it was human. In living rooms, people turned up the volume on their televisions. In cafes, workers gathered around screens. In schools, students sat quietly as teachers waited for updates. Even in hospitals, patients and doctors paused to watch small monitors that provided news. The entire world was united in waiting. But while Earth waited, something unexpected happened within the assembly. A few worlds smaller, ones that had long been forced to pay tribute, looked at Earth's message with disbelief, then with admiration. For the first time, they saw a civilization refuse a demand the assembly had always treated as absolute. A ripple of emotion spread through them. Hope. Meanwhile, the more powerful civilizations reacted differently. They felt insulted. One representative slammed his fist on the table, demanding punishment for Earth. Another shouted that the assembly must not appear weak. More voices rose, each one trying to overpower the others. The assembly chamber, once full of composed diplomatic order, now sounded like a storm. The chaos was so intense that the head of the chamber was forced to activate stabilizer fields just to maintain calm. The lights dimmed, signaling a call to order, but even then, the voices continued buzzing. While the assembly panicked, Earth remained steady. Hours passed on Earth. The sky stayed peaceful. No strange movements appeared in orbit. Observatories tracked the alien structures, but they remained in place. Leaders returned to their offices, watching every update, prepared for whatever would happen next. The one-word message had finished sending only a few hours ago, but the waiting felt much longer. People tried to distract themselves with work, family, or conversation, but every mind was focused on a single question. What would the assembly do? Finally, just before dawn on Earth, signs of a reaction appeared. The satellites closest to the moon detected movement. One of the alien structures shifted slightly. Its surface opened like a flower unfolding under the sun. Energy readings spiked. Earth's monitoring teams rushed to their stations. They checked the readings again and again. The structure was not powering up a weapon. It was preparing a transmission. The assembly was about to respond. Back on Earth, leaders gathered in the same room where they had sent the one-word message. Their hearts beat faster now. They didn't regret the response, but they knew the next moment would determine what came next. Peace, conflict, negotiation, or something entirely unexpected. The transmission began. A low-frequency rumble filled the room as the alien message reached Earth's receivers. The sound was unlike anything humans had heard before. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't comforting. It was simply massive, like the echo of a mountain cracking. The message slowly translated onto the main screen. The first line read, "Earth, your answer has been received." Everyone leaned forward. The second line appeared, "Your refusal is unacceptable." Quiet unease spread across the room. And the third line appeared. It stunned everyone. "Explain yourself." Earth's leaders stared at the message. Of all the reactions they expected, from threats to demands, this was the last thing they thought the assembly would say. They expected Earth to be afraid. They expected Earth to bow down. They expected Earth to see them as unbeatable. But Earth had simply said no. And that refusal had shaken them so deeply that they were now asking for clarification. A sign that they did not understand humanity at all. Leaders exchanged glances. Some whispered quietly. Others took notes. A few simply stared at the screen, realizing what the message meant. The assembly was confused, not angry, not preparing for war, not just confused. They wanted to know why. Earth dared to do something no other world had done before. Back on Earth, panic gave way to something surprising: confidence. If the assembly was demanding explanation, it meant they didn't know how to react. It meant the tribute system was not built for this. It meant they were shaking in ways Earth could not yet see. The leaders gathered once more, preparing to respond. But this time, they didn't feel rushed or pressured. Something had changed. Earth now had the advantage of unpredictability. The galaxy had spoken. Now it was Earth's turn to speak again. The next message would shape everything that followed. And humanity was ready. When the Galactic Assembly received Earth's one-word message, the reaction spread through their grand chamber like a shockwave. But the shock didn't stop there. It started breaking apart the unity that the Assembly had proudly shown for thousands of years. Back on Earth, people didn't know this yet. They only knew that the Assembly had asked for an explanation. That single request told Earth something important. The Assembly wasn't as confident as it pretended to be. Meanwhile, far away in the cold darkness of space, the Assembly's grand hall looked nothing like the calm, disciplined place it had always been. Representatives from dozens of worlds spoke at once. Some shouted, some panicked, and others simply stared at the screen, reading Earth's refusal over and over again. A message that humans sent using one tiny transmitter had shaken a structure. Built from countless advanced CIVIL, ICTIONs. Inside the chamber, the air filled with tension. The head of the assembly tried to call for quiet, but the noise only grew louder. The message itself, one simple word, had become bigger than the tribute order. It had become a symbol. Some members of the assembly were outraged. Some were frightened. Some were inspired. The chamber split into three groups almost immediately. The first group insisted Earth must be punished. They believed that if one world said no, then others might also refuse. To them, Earth was a danger, not because of its weapons, but because of its influence. If a young world like Earth could stand up to the assembly, then maybe other worlds that had suffered for years would do the same. The second group argued that Earth should be negotiated with. They admitted the tribute system was outdated and unfair. They insisted that forcing Earth to pay tribute was unnecessary stress. These members had been silently unhappy for a long time. Earth's refusal gave them the courage to speak up. The third group remained quiet. They were thinking deeply, watching carefully, waiting to see which side would gain strength. This group was the most dangerous, not because they were violent, but because they were unpredictable. All of this chaos began because Earth said one word: no. The first signs of the assembly's collapse began with a small argument. A representative from a weaker world stood up and said something that froze the entire chamber. If Earth can refuse, why can't we? Silence followed for a moment. Then murmurs spread. Many of the smaller worlds had never dared ask such a question. They were used to being pushed around, to paying tribute they couldn't afford. But Earth's courage had reached them. Earth didn't have the biggest armies. Earth didn't have the most advanced technology. Earth didn't have thousands of years of interstellar experience. But Earth had something powerful: spirit. That spirit echoed through the chamber now, shaking the confidence of the older civilizations. Representatives from stronger worlds grew nervous. The tribute system had kept them wealthy for generations. If the smaller worlds stopped paying, everything would change. A representative from one of the powerful worlds rose from their seat and demanded the assembly silence the rebellious voices. They insisted that the tribute system must stand strong. But as soon as they finished speaking, dozens of hands rose in disagreement. The old system was beginning to crack. Back on Earth, the situation remained calm on the surface, but the tension under that calm grew. Earth didn't know that its single word was causing arguments light years away. They only knew that the assembly wanted an explanation. Earth's leaders were preparing to send a longer reply, something clear but still respectful, something that explained the human point of view. But every time they tried writing it, the message felt too cautious or too complicated. They eventually agreed that the best response should be honest, simple, and human. While they discussed their options, news stations on Earth were full of speculation. Some experts believed the assembly wanted to understand humanity better before deciding what to do. Others felt the assembly itself was confused, maybe even divided. Nobody guessed just how divided they truly were. Meanwhile, at the assembly, things were getting worse. One of the oldest civilizations stood and declared that Earth's refusal was dangerous, but not because of rebellion, because it exposed the assembly's weakness. The moment they said this, chaos erupted again. The head of the chamber banged the control staff repeatedly to get silence, but the shouting continued. Some worlds even threatened to walk out of the assembly if force was used against Earth. They didn't want to see another world crushed simply for protecting its freedom. They had lived through those consequences themselves. Other worlds demanded protection, fearing that if the tribute system fell, they would be vulnerable. The assembly was breaking apart, not slowly, but rapidly, like a structure cracking in the sea. Middle with no support left. Inside the chamber, the pressure became too much. Entire delegations stood up and marched out, refusing to be part of any decision. Some worlds cut off their communication links entirely, declaring temporary independence until the tribute issue was settled. The tribute system, something that had held for ages, was collapsing. And Earth hadn't even sent a second message yet. Meanwhile, Earth's astronomers noticed something strange. The alien structures near the moon were no longer working together smoothly. They kept adjusting, turning slightly off-sync, reacting to different signals. This behavior suggested that the assembly's control wasn't unified anymore. Different. Factions inside the assembly were sending different commands. At first, Earth's analysts worried this might mean danger. But after monitoring the patterns, they realized something surprising. The assembly wasn't preparing for war. It was struggling to stay together. Back on Earth, discussions continued late into the night. Leaders talked about what to say next and how to say it. They didn't want to provoke fear. They didn't want to insult anyone. But they also didn't want to take back their refusal. Earth's message had to show strength without aggression. It had to show clarity without hostility. As they worked, Earth's people waited. Many watched the night sky as if expecting something to appear, but the stars remained quiet. The moon shone like always. Life continued, but with a sense of anticipation filling every corner of the world. Far away, the assembly reached a breaking point. A representative from a smaller world marched to the center of the chamber and announced that their world was ending tribute payments immediately. Others cheered, shocked at their own courage. This caused the powerful worlds to panic. They demanded action, but no one listened. They tried to restore order, but their voices were lost in the rising waves of argument. The chamber's lights flickered. As the tension rose, security drones hovered nervously. The head of the assembly tried to speak, but nobody heard them. The oldest governing body in the galaxy was falling apart, all because one world had dared to stand its ground. Earth didn't know it yet, But their one-word message had become more than a refusal. It had become a spark that revealed the injustices of a system that had survived, untouched for centuries. And now that system was burning from the inside. Near the end of the assembly session, after hours of chaos, a final message was sent to Earth. A short message. A tired message. A message written by a divided council that no longer knew what to do. The message said, Earth, your refusal has disrupted the unity of the assembly. Further discussion is required. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even confident. It was a sign of collapse. Back on Earth, when the message was received, leaders paused. They read it again and again. They realized what it meant. Humanity's simple word had changed everything. The tribute system was cracking. The assembly was splitting. The galaxy was listening, and Earth's voice was stronger than anyone expected. Humanity had not fired a weapon. Humanity had not sent a threat. Humanity had simply stood firm, and because of that, the greatest political structure in the galaxy was beginning to fall apart. Now the galaxy waited again, this time for Earth's second message, and the next part of the story would decide the future of every world watching. The news of the Galactic Assembly breaking apart spread across space like a storm, reaching Earth within hours. People everywhere heard updates through screens, radios, and live broadcasts. Even though the assembly had not made any move against Earth yet, there was a strange tension in the air that everyone could feel. It was as if the whole galaxy was waiting for Earth to say or do something next. But Earth stayed silent. No messages were sent out. No speeches were made. And strangely, this silence made the galaxy even more nervous. Inside Earth's main communication center, the atmosphere was calm but alert. Teams worked day and night, checking every incoming signal, every foreign broadcast, and every change in the assembly's behavior. They were not preparing for a fight. They were simply staying aware. It was almost surprising how quietly humanity took everything, especially after sending a one-word answer that had shaken the most powerful political structure in the galaxy. The one word was still being debated across thousands of alien worlds. Commentators in distant star systems argued about what humanity meant. Some thought it was arrogance. Some believed it was bravery. Others thought it was simply refusal in the clearest form possible. No matter what people believed, the effect was the same. The assembly no longer looked untouchable. Many of its members were unsure what to do next, and for the first time in their lives, they were second-guessing their own leaders. Meanwhile, Earth kept functioning like normal. People went to work, students attended class, families spent time together, and life continued without panic. The tribute demand had been serious, but humanity's answer had been even more serious. The world had chosen dignity over submission, and that choice created a quiet confidence in people's hearts. Some felt nervous, of course, but the overall feeling was that they had done the right thing. In the Galactic Assembly chamber, things were not so calm. Every hour brought new arguments between different species. Delegates accused each other of being afraid, irresponsible, or secretly supporting Earth. Whole groups walked out, refusing to participate in any plan that involved forcing Earth to pay tribute. Security forces struggled to maintain order, and the chamber, once a symbol of unity, now looked like a meeting falling apart in slow motion. At one point, a broadcast from an outer rim world showed its representatives standing up and openly declaring that their people would no longer submit to tribute. The reason? If Earth had the courage to say no, then they could say no too. That single declaration encouraged several other worlds to follow. And suddenly, the assembly found itself losing control of more members than it could afford to lose. Earth watched all this from a distance, neither celebrating nor panicking. The people running the communication center understood that stepping into the chaos would only make things worse. sometimes saying nothing speaks louder than any speech. A quiet moment came during one evening when a message arrived from a distant world. It wasn't a threat, nor a demand. It was a simple note of support. The message said they admired Earth's courage and wished they could show the same strength. The team in the communication center read it several times. No one replied, but the message stayed on the screen for a long while. It reminded them that their decision had reached hearts far beyond their own world. Outside of government buildings, ordinary people discussed the situation with surprising maturity. They understood the risks, but also understood the importance of standing firm. Many believed that if they had given in once, they would be asked to give in again and again, until Earth became nothing more than a controlled world paying for the comfort of others. No one wanted that future. In many alien news networks, analysts tried to predict Earth's next move. But Earth wasn't planning anything dramatic. Instead, humanity focused on strengthening internal defenses, organizing resources, and staying ready just in case. This wasn't aggression. It was responsibility. If the galaxy reacted badly, Earth had to protect its people. But no one was eager to start a conflict. The goal had never been war. The goal had been respect. A week after the one-word message, a surprising broadcast arrived. It came not from the assembly, but from a neutral planet known for its fair political statements. The speaker announced that the tribute system was outdated and harmful, and that Earth's response had exposed this truth. They urged the galaxy to rethink the entire system. For the first time in years, the conversation shifted away from Earth and toward the failures of the assembly. This created a wave across the galaxy. People began questioning why they accepted heavy tribute taxes for so long. Why were smaller worlds forced to give more than richer ones? Why did some member species live in comfort while others lived in struggle? The questions grew louder and louder. Earth had not planned any of this. But their one-word answer had opened a door that could no longer be closed. Back on Earth, people watched interviews from alien citizens living light years away. Some shared stories of how tribute demands had hurt their lives, drained their resources, or limited their growth. Others talked about how Earth's refusal made them think differently about their own situation. Many said they felt hope for the first time in years. One evening in Earth's communication center, a soft alarm blinked, indicating an incoming direct message from the assembly. The team exchanged glances, unsure whether this was the moment they had been waiting for. After running safety checks, they accepted the transmission. A tired-looking assembly representative appeared on the screen. The representative did not issue a threat. Instead, they calmly stated that the assembly had entered a restructuring phase and would not pursue tribute collection from Earth or any other world for now. It wasn't a full surrender, but it was the closest thing to admitting defeat without saying the words directly. The team didn't cheer. They simply noted the message and forwarded it to Earth's leaders. The real celebration happened among ordinary people when the news reached the public. People gathered in streets, shared kind messages online, and expressed relief that the danger had passed for now. But even during the celebration, there was a strong understanding that Earth had not won anything in the traditional sense. Instead, humanity had stood firm in a moment when fear could have taken over. And that act, simple but powerful, had changed the direction of the galaxy. Over the next few days, more and more worlds announced their independence from tribute demands. Some civilizations even invited Earth to speak about unity and dignity. Earth accepted none of the invitations. The world believed that giving speeches could make the situation messy again. Sometimes the best leadership is quiet leadership. A few months later, the Galactic Assembly officially suspended the tribute system. They blamed economic challenges and internal disagreements, but everyone knew the truth. Earth's refusal, spoken in one calm word, had broken the illusion of control. Across the galaxy, Earth became known not as an aggressive or dominant world, but as a world that valued freedom and fairness. The one-word answer became a symbol, repeated in conversations, messages, and even art on dozens of planets. It reminded people that strength does not always come from weapons or armies. Sometimes it comes from the courage to say no God in the end. The galaxy didn't fear Earth. Instead, it respected Earth, and that respect was stronger than anything the then assembly had ever demanded through tribute or force. Humanity didn't set out to lead anyone. They simply refused to kneel. And that simple choice changed everything.